Paula Show is on. The Paula Show. Come on, one and all. I extend an invitation to the Paula Show. Join in the conversation. Transforming behavior, recognizing our Savior, overcoming hurdles, achieving dreams. Together we can succeed.
Tonight on the Paula Show, it's a hot topic. We're speaking about the correlation between injustice and poverty. Is it really true that there's no justice for poor people in this world? Not only in Antigua and Barbuda, but it seems to be the case all across the globe. Well, I have a packed audience of beautiful people here tonight. And to guide us through the discussion is my learned attorney, Sherry and Bradshaw. Show her some love. And Colin Knight. Colin, what are you? My nephew, a student. He works at Foreign Affairs. He is just an awesome young man. Look at how nicely he is attired. We'll be right back with you on the Paula Show to speak about poverty and injustice. And yes, we have some real life cases to share with you because I know of a particular case in Antigua and Barbuda that's going to blow your mind. Stay with us. We'll be right back on the Paula Show. Remember, the Paula Show is broadcast via CTV on Channel 2 on Tuesday nights at 9, and on Sundays there's a rebroadcast at 1. Like me on Facebook, The Paula Show. Send me an email at thepaulaszowtv@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, The Paula Show TV. So tonight we're speaking about injustice and poverty. I want to speak about social injustice, but I have to say this. The World Bank Group, which works in more than 145 countries, has as its mission, our dream is a world free of poverty. So, injustice still exists, and there are no access for poor people, or hardly any access, to good schools, to health care, to electricity, safe water, and other critical services. Now, I want to speak specifically about good schools. Do you still hear about good schools in Antigua and Barbuda? People wanting their children to go to good schools. I remember when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, you would hear of good schools. But is that still something that people are talking about, good schools? You think?
Well, I think so. I think there's still that perception that certain schools in Antigua are a bit better than other schools, or there's this pecking order in terms of schools. I don't know if they still do it now, but when I was doing common entrance, you used to write down the preference in terms of which school you wanted to go to, which secondary school you wanted to
and
go to.
everybody
And
all the boys wanted to go to the Antigua grammar school,
high
not PM
school,
school.
King Joseph's Academy or whatever. But I honestly think, however, these distinctions are arbitrary, and it's really the work that you do when you get there that makes the difference, not necessarily.
But
the
in
school
relation
per
to
se.
poor persons, do you think that some schools, the school fee is deliberately increased so that poor people cannot afford the school fee, and you keep them out? So it's deliberately done. Why are you all behaving like that? It happens sometimes, so I'm just saying, is that common in Antigua?
I wouldn't say it is common in Antigua, because what you do actually find is that that really doesn't work, because you would find poor people making the necessary sacrifices, throwing the box hand, do whatever it is that they have to do in order to ensure that their children get the best education that they deem fit. So I
this might not be applicable to Antigua.
Not
What about
necessarily.
health care and insurance?
Healthcare and insurance, you'll have to look at that in a particular context, because healthcare as it relates to accessibility to the hospital is free to any child under the age of 16.
Even poor people.
Even, of course, any child under the age of 16. Once you pay medical benefits, you can access Medicare, medical treatment at the hospital.
But then there's a flip side to that, because you might be able to access all that at a local hospital. But then are the resources really as good as the hospitals where the wealthy people can pay the money and get access to really, really good doctors? There's always medical supplies at these hospitals, but at the public hospitals, sometimes you have situations where there are not sufficient human resources and not sufficient medical supplies.
So we only have one hospital in Antigua and Barbuda, and that is the Mount St. John's Medical Center. All the others are clinics, and if anything goes wrong at the clinics, no matter how much money you pay, you have to still end up at the hospital.
And your thoughts?
No, I think there's definitely an issue in terms of public access to anything, whether it be healthcare, education. The view is that if it's public, it's of a lesser standard.
These are the issues that impact social justice. Everyone in Antigua has access to electricity service, you think?
I would think that anyone in Antigua can have access to electricity services. I mean, you have to look at everything in context, because you have individuals who are not able to afford well, I'm not going to say not able to afford, who do not have the necessities that are required for day-to-day living, but they have the wants that are in life. And it's just a matter of just putting your priorities first.
I don't think that is the case. So then if you're saying that, then you're nullifying the argument that there's social injustice. I put it to you that not everyone can afford electricity. There's so many families that are using extension cords from one home to the other, and that is why sometimes people are electrocuted.
And I would urge them to desist from that.
I would urge them to desist from that. But then how are they going to get the electricity if they don't do that?
But picture this. They do that. They get caught. They get fined $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. They will be without electricity for the rest of their life. It's just a matter of you just budgeting yourself where certain things are concerned.
I don't agree with that. There are some people who are just not able to afford the basic necessities of life.
I disagree.
Am I alone on that?
No.
You disagree? What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I think that there's a divergence between absolute poverty and relative poverty. Absolute poverty is when you're living below a certain income. I think it's $1 a day or $2 a day, whatever that threshold is, and there's relative poverty. I think we have come a very long way in Antigua and Barbuda in eliminating a lot of the extreme forms of poverty. And a lot of the poverty we see is perhaps relative poverty, because I think Antiguans enjoy a very high standard of living. I, however, do agree with the fact that there are a lot of people who are still perhaps living on very little income or no income at all, and they get sort of marginalized or ignored because we don't really see these kinds of pockets of poverty, but they are there. There are some people in the country who are really struggling to make ends meet, who really can't afford even the basic necessities. And absolute poverty does in fact exist in this country, and so therefore there has to be a sort of a social safety net to take care of these indigent persons, to help them to get on their feet and to
And we are
take
going
care.
to continue speaking about poverty, but we're going to poverty in the justice system, in the criminal court system. It's a wonderful night on the Paula Show. You will enjoy this discussion. Sherry and Bradshaw is in the house again, and we have Carlin Knight with us as well. He's a brilliant mind. And my audience, are you loving the discussion so far? The Paula Show is broadcast via CTV on Channel 2. Remember to catch the Paula Show on Tuesday nights at 9, and Sundays there's a rebroadcast at 1. Tonight we're speaking about poverty and injustice, and we've reached the place where we're speaking about procedural justice. Now, just to share with you, especially my learned friend, locally, a large percentage of the prison population is young men from poor families. And when we say poor families, people generally think Grace Farm, Green Bay, Villa. No, they're from Old Road, Potters, Pigots, all the villages in Antigua and Barbuda, Liberta, All Saints, Parham, all of them. Now, some persons have written them off, and one learned legal luminary told me these men are mostly there because they're lazy, they do not want to work, and so they spend their days selling drugs, breaking into people's homes, and robbing people. You call that larceny, right?
Yes.
Are you in agreement with this statement?
Not in totality. You do have those who are just lazy and don't want to look work, but you also have those who have tried, and perhaps because of the level of poverty and lack of guidance, they are led into that particular type of lifestyle. And once they're led into that particular type of lifestyle, it becomes exactly as it is, a lifestyle, and a lifestyle that is very difficult to break free from, especially where you get involved in terms of gangs. You become labeled by the police, by society, and persons generally just write you
But
off.
why is it there's so many young men in prison? Why is it that there aren't nearly as many females in prison? And the age range in prison, the most common age range is 18 to 35.
Yes, yes.
So we females, we experience a lot of challenges as well. Why are we not in prison?
Females have a different mindset than the males do.
Oh,
Yes,
there's some disagreement right there. You
I
guys don't agree?
the men wouldn't. But female have a different mindset than men. And you also have to couple it with the fact that a lot of the males don't have that, the boys, they didn't have that role model of a man. We like to say that women can raise male children. Yes, there's no disputing that, but we as women, we can't teach them everything that needs to be taught about a man.
Okay, 1 second. What are you saying about all this? Because you're a young gentleman. You were raised with a father?
No, I wasn't really, but
Look at you.
I think I don't know about different mindset per se, but I think there's definitely a different way in which the women and men are socialized, particularly in the Caribbean. I think they're socialized differently, and that might explain why a man might be more inclined to criminal activity than, say, a female. I think men are socialized particularly to one, be the providers, to be the aggressors, to go out and to seek, and to, this mindset has been passed down throughout humanity. Men were the hunters and the gallows and those kinds of things, whereas women were socialized to be more domestic and those kinds of things. I'm not saying that's right, I'm just saying that that's perhaps. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that, so for a man, therefore, it's for him not being able to find a job, not being able to be employed, he may see it as his duty to go out and make a living any way he can. That may involve him wanting to go into criminal activity, let's say, as opposed to taking a job as a clerk or something that might not fit well with his masculine persona.
But given that most of our men are absent from the homes, and we females are usually left with the responsibility to take care of the children, you would think that we would be the ones selling drugs and
do whatever it is. And that is what females are actually doing. We're doing whatever it is we have to do. So if we have to clean an office, go and pack a shelf, cash, you look at the supermarkets, 95% of the cashiers are females. You even see them multitasking and packing shelves. I am not going to agree with my friend here when he's telling me that men and women, boys and girls are cultured differently. That was then. We have to look at the age of the
We're talking
young
about
boys.
18 to 35, so he has
18.
a point.
No, he has a point up to a point. But at 18,
Yes.
what responsibility as a man would you at 18 have that would cause you to go and commit
Remember, a lot of our
crimes?
young men have children.
No,
and
no, no.
several children
No, no, no.
who are 18.
I will tell you this. A lot of the young men in prison between 18 and 35, at least 66% of them have no children, simply because they have gone into the institution
From an early age.
From an early age, but they don't have any time to have children. They're not outside enough to have
To
children.
engage in relationships.
They have a relationship, but not outside
No.
long enough to
Become
procreate.
intimate and procreate. Okay.
I think it extends, and when I say socialize differently, I think it extends just beyond the whole idea of providing. I think men by nature are a lot more aggressive. Men who tend to get into fights more, men who tend to want to protect themselves, protect their turf, their domain more. They have this sort of aggressive personality as part of their masculinity. Therefore, you find a lot more men, particularly young men at that age, are more inclined to get into fights, more inclined to do a lot of things that may not be of good repute, and that may land them into trouble.
But if you're already poor, that's strike one. Don't you think it would make sense to stay far away from criminal activities? I mean, you may be poor, but you have common sense, not true?
Thank you. And my whole thing is that some of the reasons given by Mr. Knight here are just excuses. Because
Mr. Knight, you're
women,
making excuses for
No.
men because
Women-
you're a gentleman.
I would hope not. No.
there are women who many times who have, yes, they have women that have children by many different men. Do they hold themselves down because of that? No. If they have to hold down 5 jobs, even if they have to take the baby and put the baby there while they're doing what they have, they do
But
it.
don't make females sound so perfect.
No, they're not perfect.
Because we have a
those.
growing, sophisticated prostitution
And this is
type
what I'm
of
saying.
industry
We
in
do,
Antigua this
we are
time. So
doing
it's no
what
long-
we have to do.
including that. But
We
that's a
are-
criminal activity.
Condoned, whether or not we want to accept it.
But
It is
it's a
condoned.
It speaks to the
So
sort of
why can't
hypocrisy.
you condone when they
because-
have a spliff? Why
because
can't you condone
precisely.
then when they're selling drugs?
No. It's you condone them if they have a spliff to a certain point. The court really does not come down hard on an individual who gets charged with a possession of a spliff, you know. What the court comes down hard on is when you are caught with pounds upon pounds of cocaine
It could be
and
that I'm a heavy
marijuana.
smoker.
No. When
No, I'm just saying.
you're stocking up.
I'm stocking up because sometimes it gets scarce, right? No,
but-
I'm just saying.
But then you have to look at this thing, 18 to 35, majority of them are young men and the majority of them are repeat offenders. Repeat offenders. I will again disagree with him where he says that men are more aggressive.
Of course.
And
You're
feel
more aggressive than some men, but men are generally more aggressive.
I do not find that is
You don't
the
find
case.
men are more aggressive than
I
females?
find that is an excuse.
All right. We're going to get back to procedural justice, but I just want to share something from Martin Luther King. He said, "It is not possible to be in favor of justice for some people and not be in favor of justice for all people." It's heating up and set at the Paula Show. And you know that I love controversy and my people are not agreeing. So I'm just loving the show tonight. What about you, wherever you're watching? We'll be right back after this commercial break. So we're talking about the correlation between justice and poverty on the Paula Show tonight. And I know that you're wondering what's coming up next. We are going to be talking about the reasons why poor people are imprisoned. And don't go to the parents' part. Because you see me, I have 4 boys and a daughter. I try hard, even harder than my husband, because he's a nice guy. And there are times when they just do not behave how I expect them to behave. But at the end of the day, society blames me for their pitfalls. I have a serious problem with that. I'm offended. So I can imagine many parents are offended. And the legal people sit there, and the police, and they say parents are to be blamed. You're not agreeing with that, right?
I don't think parents are to be blamed.
I just
think
love
it's
you, guy.
I think it's a combination of factors, really, and we all need to look at them in a very holistic way.
Yes.
I think when you go back to Ms. Bradshaw's point about females having to work 3 and 4 jobs sometimes to be able to make ends meet, coupled with the absence of the fathers. When you look at those kinds of circumstances, what you are seeing is clearly a lack of supervision in some cases.
But
not
I
all
have
cases.
a point. There are times when we spend so much time speaking about lack of supervision and single parents. There are times when there are 2 parents in the household and it's still a single parent situation.
I agree. And some people don't pull their weight, and there needs to be more done in that respect. But I think if you really look at a lot of what in poverty, in poor situations, what you find is a clear lack of, in many instances, a lot of family planning that doesn't go on. But you also find a breakdown in community values. So it's not just the family alone, but it's also the community.
Okay.
It used to be that, as they say, it took a village to raise a child and those kind of things.
No, you can't talk about people's children these days because you'll be in trouble.
Yes, we see that nobody seems to have that sort of altruistic spirit to look after each other, to look out for the welfare of each other.
Miss Bradshaw is shaking her head. She's agreeing with you on a point.
On a point, I am agreeing with him.
On one point.
On that point, because I am going to say that there are times where you actually have to blame some of the parents, because you have some parents that are so busy wanting to be their friends as opposed to wanting to be the parent. As a parent, you're going to be the bad guy because you're not going to agree with everything they want to do. You're going to disagree with quite a lot of things because through maturity and age, you would know what would be best, and you would know what is down the road that may befall them. So there are some parents that they will go tonight, they will sit down and smoke and drink with their children. And if anything comes befalling of that child, you have to blame the parent because the values weren't instilled in them.
The fundamental values.
Age.
So we agree, we blame some parents, but some are not supposed to be blamed. Lack of adequate public defense. We don't have public defense in Antigua.
I would say no.
Okay. So lack of funds to hire good lawyers. These are some of the reasons why people are imprisoned. Let me tell you, you will not convince me tonight that justice doesn't have a price tag. I'm serious. O.J. Simpson hired Johnny Cochran, F. Lee Bailey, Robert Shapiro.
And where is he now?
It's not about where he's in now. He got away then because of his good legal team, because we all have our feelings on that situation, right? So I am saying to you that in a lot of instances, if you're wealthy, you can buy justice. If you're poor, that's it. I'm serious. I'm a firm believer in that.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
So you're agreeing with me?
I think
To a point again?
Yes, to a point.
What's up with you on all these half points?
I will agree with you to a point. I mean, because for persons who get charged and they have the means to obtain bail, they can get bail. It just means that if the evidence is so overwhelming, they stay out longer on bail, but eventually they will have to serve time.
You are being very cautious on the point that I made, and you're speaking about bail. I didn't speak about bail. Listen to me clearly. I said justice can be bought. Sometimes you know people, you make a phone call, your child is not going to prison because you have money. But I'm poor, my child will be going to prison. You had a point?
Yeah,
you had something
I
you
agree.
want to say.
I have to agree with you
Thank you
there,
very much.
Auntie Paula. I mean, I do think that those who are of the higher ends in society or more wealthy in society can of course afford better lawyers, and there are differences in the quality of services, legal services offered.
You agree with
and
that?
I'm sure Ms. Bradshaw will agree with me on this point.
Are you agreeing with that?
There are quality in services that are provided, but I will also state that in Antigua, you do have lawyers such as QCs who actually give free of their time. And they give the same effort and the same man hours that they would to a
Okay, so
case
my
that
point
they
is,
paid.
and do you know of some who do not offer the quality service?
Every profession has that.
No, I'm asking you if you know of some.
Of course.
Okay, I just wanted to hear that.
Of course.
And so when you look at as well the caseload, and you look at the number, for example, I know that if you can't afford a lawyer, the state has an obligation to.
No, she says
No,
that.
the state,
Not in Antigua.
The
In
only
the
how the
US.
state can do that is if you're charged with murder.
Okay.
Okay.
But there are public defenders in Antigua that you can go to.
Where are
for
the
legal.
public defenders?
So you see, this is another point. We have no public defenders.
But I said that.
So that's an issue.
So we
people,
understand.
so where do poor people who can't afford to go to Ms. Bradshaw anymore or private attorney?
No, Ms. Bradshaw is very reasonable. That's why she's on the Paula show.
And if
Ms.
you
Bradshaw
know,
doesn't do criminal matters.
We know, but you will make a reference.
if
You
a
tell us
lawyer
what
does
to
not
do.
decide to be charitable or be kind and do a case pro bono, where do you get justice? Or how do you get justice? I mean, we have no public defense. Even if we did have public defense, so we couldn't afford to pay the people the kind of salary to make it worth their time, the caseload would be perhaps too much, for the amount of cases that come through the justice system.
I am
So
telling
therefore,
you.
we have an issue in
let
terms
me
of the
tell you
quality of legal services
Let
we
me
offer.
tell you something. You are so passionate because you have no idea how much pro bono work certain lawyers actually give. What you find happening is that we pro bono, and 5-6 times we're seeing you again and again and again. We do give a lot of pro bono work, but when we're seeing you, we do it free. We do it free. And 6, 7, 8 times you're actually graduating. You've graduated from spliff to housebreaking, to larceny, to drugs, to
Listen.
robbery, to murder.
That tells me that there's something fundamentally wrong with
Society.
the system. Society. Well, there's a breakdown
And the
somewhere.
social services
Yes,
are
there's
lacking.
I agree. There's a breakdown somewhere
But
that you see.
I
with these
understand the
defenders.
pro bono. And I understand that she has to make a case for the lawyers. But when we return, we are also going to discuss that there are some lawyers who are so not familiar with their clients that they get to the courthouse and they're pointing on you and saying that you're not guilty and you're not the client. It's the other person over there. So when we get back on the Paula show, more information for you about poverty and justice. We'll be right back.
Our basic instinct as human beings is to what? Belong. Maslow's hierarchy of need tells us basic for humans, belonging. That's why gangs are so effective. Our family unit is, let's just call it non-existent anymore. So it is a multifaceted issue that not only lends itself to our legal professionals and their investment in the poor person who doesn't have the dollars in their pocket to be able to pay for your time. Yes, I still need to go through your file and become familiar with the issues specific to your case and offer you what? Advice. Good advice, so that I'm not sitting in a box making a decision. I'm going to say, now I'm going to say, yes, I'm guilty because I've been so advised, because my attorney has no idea what the facts of my case are, and quite frankly, he or she doesn't care.